Welcome to On My Way to Wealth, the podcast where busy Gen Xers can learn financial tips as they navigate life on their way to wealth. And now, please join your host, Luis Rosa.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of On My Way to Wealth. April is Financial Literacy Month, and I have an amazing guest for you who is talking all about how you can make your finances better by being more empowered and having more confidence. His name is Matt Schulz. He's the author of Ask Questions, Save Money, Make More, How to Take Control of Your Financial Life. He is a chief credit analyst at LendingTree, a credit and personal finance expert. He has appeared on ABC World News Tonight, Good Morning America, NBC Nightly News, Today, and other national shows, and Bloomberg News, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and other publications that have showcased his expertise. As a former journalist, he has run online news teams for TV stations, newspapers, and websites, and has written for and edited for Bankrate, American Banker, and USNews.com, among other outlets. He lives in Austin, Texas, with his wife and son. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. I know that your, schedule's packed, doing everything that it's involved in launching a book. So I appreciate you taking the time as well. I wanted to just ask you before we get into the book, just tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into your career path and talking about personal finance?
Yeah, it's funny. My career path is one of those where the motto has kind of been, when somebody presents you a really good opportunity, say yes and figure out how to do it later. And because I'm a guy who started off a journalism major from the University of Texas and started off as a sports writer and covered NFL training camps, NBA stuff, all kinds of things. And it was a really fun way to go through college. But I ended up transitioning out of that into just more kind of regular journalism over time as my career went on, and ended up working for a long time at the NBC affiliate here in Austin, running their online news team. And then when my son was born, I decided that I didn't want to necessarily work the 24/7 news cycle anymore, and ended up transitioning into personal finance stuff full time in 2008, which was a really interesting time because that was right about when the economy was falling apart in the
Great year
recession.
to get started.
Right. Yeah. Nothing major happened there. And so I ended up getting into personal finance primarily as a editor, writer, blogger, and transitioning into more of the camera-facing kind of media relations expert kind of role that I've been in the last few years. And I never thought of myself as somebody who would be able to be on camera and be on some of the shows that you mentioned. But it's been a lot of fun, and I'm kind of a testament to the importance of being willing to try things, being willing to fail, and putting yourself out there a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. I think that a lot of us can learn from that because you're right. Sometimes we're not ready for something and the opportunity presents itself and you just have to say yes and figure it out along the way, right? Because otherwise you just going to let go of something that could have been great, right?
Yeah. And my mom, God love her, has had a recording of my first ever interview that I had on national TV. It was on Fox Business, and it was just, I was like a deer in headlights. It was just a mess. It was just not a lot of fun, and she kept it on her DVR for many years, and at one point was like, would you want to watch this? And I was like, no, I would not. But it was a very sweet thing. But it's been good to kind of be able to grow and to become more confident in that space.
Yeah, no, that's pretty sweet. That's awesome. So what led up to your initial thought of, hey, I need to pretty much gather everything I've learned throughout these years and put it into something concise that people can take, like actionable items, which is one of the things I love about the book, by the way, is the fact that it's not theory. It's like, hey, here's something that you can actually do right now to improve your financial life, as small as it can be, right? Because all those small things that
Yeah.
I love the fact that you have scripts for people. Say, here's exactly what you can say. Here's a comeback if they say no, and then you have real world examples of people who have done it and the outcome, right? So I think that's also very inspiring, So thank you for putting all that together. I'm sure, can't even imagine the amount of work that was put together into something like this. So yeah, what led up to you just saying, hey, I need to put all this in writing?
Well, I've as a journalism major and a writer and a reader, I've always kind of wanted to do a book, but I've never really had the right idea, and I've also never really necessarily had the platform. I don't have a podcast. I don't have a giant social media following, but over time, I've done enough things and have enough kind of media connections where I was able to pitch myself and my idea as something that could sell. And the most important thing, honestly, though, is having the idea. And it really did come from the fact that I've done a million interviews over the years at Lending Tree and in previous companies talking about how about 70% of folks who ask for a lower interest rate on their credit card get one, but far too few people ever ask. And I can't tell you how many times I've said those numbers in interviews and had the reporter or the producer or the journalist be like, "Oh my God, I had no idea. Why don't people talk about this more? Why isn't this more of a thing?" And it just happened over and over and over again. And over time, I'm like, there's clearly something here that touches a nerve. And basically, I realized that there's plenty of other things like that in personal finance and just in life in general. And that was kind of where the idea of the book was born, was kind of that one nugget and kind of blowing that up into really usable, really practical tips to help people do little things that can help change their financial life.
Yeah, that was an amazing stat that stood out to me right away. And even as a financial advisor, I was like, wow, that's a huge number to I think the odds are in your favor there. And
Yeah.
that was the other running theme throughout your book that I found, going back to what you said, well, you even had to pitch yourself to get this into reality, right? And I was like, advocating for yourself, it was like a major theme that I saw. And it starts with just believing in yourself, building that confidence. One of the quotes that you have, which I loved, was you have more power over your money than you think, and that was very powerful. And so, can you tell me a little bit more about that? How did you come up with that? To that belief of telling people, hey, like you actually have more power than you think.
Yeah, that's really the underlying theme of the book, which is that you have way more power over your money than you realize. And again, it kind of sprung from that credit cards, that lowering your credit card interest rate idea. And it's something that people don't like to negotiate. I'm not particularly good at it. I'm not particularly comfortable with it. I'm not the guy who's in a room full of people and feels comfortable with being the center of conversation and raising your hand and all that sort of stuff. This stuff is scary and it's hard, and we're all nervous about getting rejected. But the truth is that if you are willing to take that step, there are things that you can do that can make your life a little easier financially. And part of the proof that I wanted to put out there to folks about that is the idea of lifetime value and how businesses view you, because the truth is that businesses make more money when you stick around. And that's a really important concept, because once you kind of get that kind of in your head, it helps you understand that you're coming at this not on bended knee, not like begging for help, but you're coming at it from a position of power, because these companies again make more money off you when you stick around. So they're willing to waive a $40 late fee or give you a free logo t-shirt or something along those lines, because it's a grain of sand on the beach to them, but it really makes a difference to you. And once you kind of realize that, it changes your mindset on negotiating and asking for help, and can really make a difference.
Yeah, that's a great perspective, the lifetime value concept, because sometimes we may get stuck thinking about it for that particular one transaction. And in reality, like you said, it's no, like they want you to be a customer forever, right? So if it means waiving that 80 something dollar credit card late fee, whatever, like that's a drop in the bucket, right? Like you said, it was just like a write off that's not even significant to them. But it creates
Yeah.
a brand loyalty, right?
Yeah, and it's something that we don't necessarily think of, because when you think of like a giant bank credit card issuer or some other company that you're trying to haggle with over $40 or $100 or whatever it might be, you just kind of think that you don't really have a chance to get your way, because you're just a small thing to this company. But the truth is that you are important to them, and they want to help you, and they want to make money off of you. And when all of that stuff is put together, it ends up giving you a pretty good amount of power in a lot of situations.
Yeah. And, another thing that I found very powerful was you were talking about two things that kind of could be combined. One was the power of the phone call, which I know the younger generation, it's funny. I remember
Yeah.
someone saying, I think it might have been a comedian, but he said that smartphones have an app that allow you to make a call as well, as if like
Right.
it's funny, like a lot of people don't even use their phones to make phone calls, right?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit of an old fashioned thing. I say it in the book, where I recognize that might date me a little bit or make me a little bit old fashioned, but there is something to be said for the power of connecting, whether it's over the phone via voice or through a video call or something like that. It makes it a lot harder for somebody to say no, because we've all seen in Twitter and stuff like that, where people can just type out things and they'll say horrible, awful things that they would never say to somebody over the phone or over Zoom or in person. And that connection can really help you when it comes to negotiating. So it's a significant thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you had mentioned the power of kind of like weaving your story. I think in certain instances, right, like it makes a stronger case for you if you don't have to be afraid or embarrassed of prefacing your ask by using the reason for it, right? So can you give us like some of the examples that you mentioned?
Yeah. No, it's really important, and it's really hard for people to be vulnerable, especially when it comes to money, because we all want to think that we kind of have it together, and we're all prideful. Nobody is eager to ask for help, even when they really, really need it. And even when they really, really know that they're probably going to get it if they ask. And one of the reasons it's hard is that it requires making yourself vulnerable and sharing the story that you're going through. And there's the old thing that every person is going through some struggle that you have no idea about. And it's 100% true. And if you are going through something that is causing you to take the step to call your lender or whoever it might be and say, hey, can I skip a payment? Can I have a lower APR even for just a little while? Something like that. it can be really powerful for you to share what you're going through. It doesn't mean that you need to give chapter and verse on everything and give all of the details of your life, but if you feel comfortable opening up enough about the job loss that you had, or the medical issue that you're going through, or the fact that you're taking care of your sick mother, or something along those lines, it can be really impactful. And you don't want to be manipulative, and you don't want to make stuff up. But if you are really going through this stuff, sharing it can make a difference. Because as much as we think of these companies as being big, faceless, giant entities, it's just a person on the other end of that phone. And that connection is going to make them feel better about helping you, because that's ultimately what we want to do.
Yeah, and it's an important point you bring up. You want to be genuine about it. And the same
Right.
goes for, some of the stuff you have mentioned, like even asking for an upgrade, whether it's to an airline or a hotel, just being kind, right, to the person on the other end and saying, hello, how you doing? How's your day going? Right. And then asking after you maybe found some common ground, see, and genuinely ask and be interested in the answer, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's important to understand that the person on the other end of the phone, or the Zoom call, or across the checkout counter from you, has probably been yelled at a time or two today, and maybe talked down to a time or two, or mansplained, or whatever. And if you just go in there, smile at them in a genuine way, ask them how they're doing, doesn't mean you have a 20-minute conversation with them about your life and what's going on in their kids' soccer game that they have this weekend or whatever. But if you just are nice and polite and kind, it can really go a long way. We all kind of get wrapped up on things like being powerful and being an alpha and all that sort of stuff. But the truth is that a lot of times, it just really, all you need to do is be nice and not be a jerk, and understand that you're just dealing with another person. And that sort of thing can really go a long way.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think some people might get intimidated by the concept of negotiation because their
Yeah.
thought process, when they think of it, is adversaries going back and forth and you trying to get one over, right? But, I like some of the stuff you mentioned is like, no, if you find a win-win, find some common ground, something that works for both of you, you probably have a much better outcome.
Well, and one of the other things is that people don't realize that they negotiate a lot of things in their life. And I mean, even if it's something like with your partner or your roommate, negotiating what temperature you're going to set the thermostat at, or what music you're going to listen to on the road trip, or who is going to deal with what night on the carpool for your son or daughter's
Yeah,
soccer
what's for
camp.
dinner?
Yeah, where you're going to go for dinner with the family when they come into town. All that stuff is negotiation, and just because you might perceive that the stakes aren't that high, and there may not be as much money involved as there would be with a mortgage or a job negotiation or a credit card limit, it's still negotiation. It's still all of the same sort of things that make you successful when you're dealing with other parents in a carpool are a lot of the same thing that make you successful when you're dealing with other kind of higher dollar things. So people don't necessarily give themselves enough credit in those things, and that is something that kind of holds some people back.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, because it shows people like, hey, you're not new at this.
Yeah.
You might be new in the sense of maybe when it comes to your mortgage or something, but you've done the overall concept.
Yeah.
That's pretty
No,
powerful. Yeah, I like that.
it's 100% true. And again, it really is sort of about the mindset and getting you to realize that you can do these things and that you have done these things and done them well. So why not take another swing?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you also mentioned, so you give several examples of how you can get something lowered, from healthcare to, even like getting an upgrade, anything like that, credit card fees waived and so on, lower APRs. I also love the fact that you mentioned how to raise revenue as well, via like asking for a promotion, for example, and the power that you have there. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. As they say, I mean, there's only so much you can cut in a budget, right? And so much you can save. Sometimes you need to bump that income up as well, and that's a really scary thing too. And one of my favorite things in the book when we're talking about this sort of area is just a really simple thing where it's playing the long game a little bit, but it's something that is really simple. And it's basically, when you are in your job, make a note once a week, every maybe couple times a month, of the things that you have done in your job, and just kind of keeping notes of things that you did that are just kind of the basic blocking and tackling of the job, and then some things where you might have done something that went a little bit above and beyond, and then also your big accomplishments. And even though we've all got to-do lists that are a million miles long, and last thing we need is something else to add to that, taking 10 minutes a couple of times a month to make notes of some of the things that you've done and that you've accomplished can save you a ton of time when you are starting to look for that promotion, because it means that you'll have all of those data points in front of you to share, and all of those arguments that you can give to your boss to say, look, I've done this, I closed that meeting with the client. I ended up doing this deal that got us a $10,000 deal, whatever the case might be. Or even if it's just small stuff where, I filled in for my colleague when they were away and ended up, closing this thing. So making that argument with your boss that you deserve that promotion or that raise is a whole lot easier when you can look at all of the things that you've done, pick out the highlights, and be able to make that strong argument to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about what you said when it comes to the lifetime value as a consumer. And then I was thinking like, oh, maybe you could apply that as well as the employee, right? In the
Yeah.
lifetime value to that company.
Yeah. And one of the things that they always say is, whether you're talking about hiring a new employee or getting a new client at the gym, or getting a new credit card applicant, it's cheaper for the business to keep what they have because finding new clients and new customers isn't cheap. It's the same thing when you're talking about renting an apartment. It's cheaper for your landlord, chances are, to keep you around than it is for them to go find somebody else. So that stuff matters too.
Yeah, that's true. And you're right, because there's a cost involved, um, not only in dollars but also in time. It may take them a while to
Yeah.
find the right fit for that job. Same thing with the landlord, right? It may take them a month or two to find the new tenant. They're losing money, right? So
Yeah.
you do have power. You're not begging.
Yeah. And I mean, with rent, I mean, we all know sometimes that you just have no leg to stand on. In some big cities, you're just kind of at the whim of what's available. But there can be times when you can you can flex a little bit and say, hey, I've been really good. I don't have any pets. I pay my bills on time, and kind of build your case that way, and say, hey, sometimes it's better to stick with the person that that is a good customer, a good client, a good renter, rather than go on and try and find somebody else who you don't know. And so that sort of stuff can work for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I like that very much. I think it puts the power back in you. It gives you some confidence to know when you look at it in those terms, for sure. I also like the fact that you mentioned this earlier, where it goes beyond just money. So one of the things you mentioned was how you can use this very same concept of advocating for yourself in your professional network as well, just to kind of expand, whether it's like reaching out to someone to ask them to be a mentor, or maybe just have a conversation. So yeah, if you can expand on that a little bit for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you always hear, that just seems to get truer and truer and truer, is that it's not always what you know; it's often who you know. And being able to reach out to people who can be mentors or who can help you is absolutely invaluable. And in talking to a lot of business people, including the CEO of Lending Tree, where my day job, he and among other people are like, these people want to help. They Chances are they had somebody who reached out to them in the past, or they have had somebody who has taken them under their wing, and they know the value of that and they want to pay that forward. So it's okay to reach out to people and asking for a minute of their time. It's really important to be respectful of their time and not ask for too much of it too soon. It's one thing to reach out and say, hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time sometime in the next 2-3 weeks? It's a whole other thing to say, hey, can I take you to lunch across town, tomorrow? You have to be respectful of people's time. You have to understand that they're busy, and you have to make it as easy as possible for them to help you. But if you do all of that stuff, I think a lot of people will be surprised at how willing oftentimes big, powerful people are to help.
Yeah, very true. And I think it's very important. There's a saying that says your network is your net worth, because I think it relates back
Yeah.
to what you were saying. Sometimes it's who you know, and that could mean, job advancement, career advancement, could be getting your kid into that school or that team or
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? Just knowing someone that can put you in front of that decision maker. Um, yeah, do you think there's a way, as the person asking, to bring value, or at least show that you're genuinely interested to that person, so that when they get your request, they're no, because I'm sure they get a lot of requests, right? That you stand out, and that you don't come across as somebody who's going to waste their time.
Yeah, if you keep it brief, if you kind of state what you want to talk about, and you make it as easy as possible for them to meet, then that can be really useful. If you have some sort of common tie that can help, maybe you both went to the same college. Maybe you know that that person is a big fan of your favorite basketball team or football team. That sort of stuff can matter. Or if you know that they are they're a foodie, and you have a great food truck that you can recommend. Little things like that. You'd be surprised at what things can kind of make connections. And then there's also the idea of, if you go to a conference, or if you hear that person speak, or things like that, you can say, hey, I saw you at this conference. I was wanting to see if you might have 15 minutes to talk sometime in the next little while. That sort of thing can work. It really is about kind of finding even just the smallest connection that can really help you stand out a little bit. That stuff matters.
Yeah, it certainly does. Absolutely. I also wanted to get your take on what you think is going to happen. I don't know if it's been finalized, but I had been reading about, one of the things you mentioned in the housing chapter was sometimes like how to negotiate either real estate fees or closing costs, or how to get a better mortgage rate and stuff. And I know that there's a huge potential change that may be coming to the real estate industry in terms of how commissions are charged. And I was wondering what your thought might be in terms of the impact to either the sellers or buyers in the home buying process.
Yeah, it's short answer is, I don't think anybody knows what this is going to look
It's a big
like.
one.
But Yeah, and people who know the space far better than I do have talked about it being, the biggest change in 50 years, and in a long, long, long time. And there's no question that it's going to have a big impact on realtors, on the entire space. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, and how kind of competition ends up working itself out to where to where we see if it actually does end up saving buyers and sellers a significant amount of money, which it certainly seems like it could. But it's one of those where it's such a big change that I think it's going to end up taking a pretty good amount of time to play out. And I think that if we reconvene in 5 or 10 years, the impacts are probably going to be felt in ways that we just have no idea right now.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out. Because traditionally the real estate agents usually get paid by the seller,
Yeah.
and then the listing agent may split their commission with the buyer's agent, and so on, right? So I'm curious to see, like, will buyers have to start paying their own agent, and just see how it plays out. But yeah, like you said, it's a big what if for now. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you before I let you go, where can we get the book, and where are you on social media? How can we find you and follow you?
Yeah, I am at by Matt Schulz everywhere in social media. That's BY, and then the last name is SCHULZ. You can follow me all over the place there. You can learn more about the book at mattschulz.com/book. And the book is available anywhere you buy books online, and in lots of bookstores across the country. And if you go into a bookstore near you and they don't have it, tell them that you'd like to get it and ask them to order some copies. And that's the way we make this stuff grow.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I'll be sure to share those in the show notes as well, so people have a direct link to it. So Ask Questions, Save Money, and Make More. Really great read for you guys. Highly encourage that you check it out. Matt, before I let you go, this is a question I always ask all of my guests, kind of like just spring it on you. But
Sure.
Think of yourself as being in an elevator with a complete stranger. It's going to be a short ride, right? Maybe 30 seconds or so. They're never going to see you again. They don't know your name, your website, your social media. What are some things that perhaps you could pass along to them, whether it's money related or just general life advice that you would say, hey, you'll never see me again. Here's what I've learned that I would like to basically share with you.
Yeah, what I've learned is that you have a lot more power over your money than you think you do. And oftentimes it really is just about being willing to wield that power. And whether it's talking about credit card interest rates or a job or splitting the bill at a group dinner without getting stuck paying 2/3 of it, there are lots of things that you can do to make your financial life better if you're willing to take that step and ask some questions that may be a little bit awkward.
I love it. I love it. And by the way, folks, when you read the book, he actually gives you the scripts. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, figure it out. So very practical advice. So thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. This was great. And thank you all for tuning in. As always, if you have any questions, send me an email, luis@onmywaytowealth.com. And I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to On My Way to Wealth. If you have any questions, please send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. The information provided here is for information and education purposes only. The opinions expressed herein are solely those of myself, unless otherwise specifically cited. Material presented is believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations are made by my firm or myself about other parties' information or accuracy or completeness. All information or ideas provided should be discussed in detail with a financial advisor, accountant, or legal counsel prior to implementation. Thank you.